Let's rock. Greetings, one and all, men, women, and androgynous creatures, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Sup?
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 1, Episode 16. Wow. If Wishes Were Horses. Subtitle, Then All Perverts Would Ride. A quick note on spoilers in case our rewatch is your first watch. Expect full spoilers through this episode and an appropriate minimum of minor spoilers for later in the season. But nothing too big, like the time the entire cast turned into vampires for a whole season.
I'd watch that.
That would be fun. Why don't more shows do that?
It's just like a season of True Blood in the middle of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
It's like they still have to fight the Cardassians and stuff, but it's like, this darn vampire. Oh, shoot, that's like going to happen in the day.
But they're in space. It's always day or night.
That's true. It's like, I got to feed on some blood before we got on this mission. Anyway, this episode originally aired May 16th, 1993. It was directed by Robert Legato and written by Nell McHugh Crawford, William L. Crawford, and Michael Piller, from a story by Nell McHugh Crawford and William L. Crawford.
Oh, well, there you go.
For whom this is the only Star Trek credit I could find. So I kind of wonder what the story is behind this. Like, whether they have the same last name, so I wouldn't, like, they're husband and wife or something, I assume, but...
Well, let's see if I can find information on this.
Yeah, it might be on Memory Alpha or something, but it's like, did they come in and pitch this idea, and then Michael Piller had to help them turn it into a Deep Space Nine script or something? I don't know.
Apparently, I don't think his Memory Alpha entry says for William. It does say that, like, co-wrote this episode with Nell McHugh Crawford, but then it goes on to say, together with Nell McHugh Crawford and Mark McQuaid Crawford, he wrote the original story, The Black Box, which was picked up by Walt Disney Pictures in 1995. So there's a third Crawford who's involved somehow.
I do not remember this movie, The Black Box.
No, I've never heard of that.
Or whatever it is. Does it have an IMDb page?
We're going to find out. That's what's going to happen now. Let's see. But first, I want to find out about this Nell McHugh. Let's see. Nell McHugh Crawford. No, not her IMDb necessarily. Just information about her. I like how the first entry that pops up in Google is the Memory Alpha article for her. That's not saying a lot for you. Okay, yeah. In filmography in IMDb for this person is known for this one episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yep. So who these Crawfords are?
Let's try William L. Crawford. See what's going on with him.
The mystery of the Crawfords.
I'm gonna find out. This is
okay.
I'm not gonna let this go. Wait, is this William L. Crawford in Wikipedia the same one? No, he died in 1984, so that's not right. No, don't also bring up William L. Crawford. Gosh. I searched with Deep Space Nine specifically, and that same Wikipedia article about the guy who died in 1984, popped up.
Well, maybe he wrote it before he died.
No, because it doesn't seem to be the same person. So, yeah, William Crawford also is only showing up as having written this episode of Deep Space Nine. So I don't know what is up with either of these people.
We need to do like a deep investigative report on this. Find out what happened to Nell McHugh and William L. Crawford. Maybe we'll make a...
Okay, hold on. Here's his IMDb. So he's got The Psychic original story under his filmography, then Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and then a video game called Team Extreme Operation Weather Disaster.
Uh-huh.
Those are his 3 listings. So I guess whatever that thing was that got picked up by Disney, it didn't go far.
Huh. I mean, I haven't heard of any of those other things either, but at least they have IMDb listings.
Yeah. Also, this third Crawford, the Mark McQuaid Crawford, also shows up as being involved in The Psychic, which is a 1991 R-rated film. Psychic. Death lives in the shadows of your mind.
Ugh.
Interesting. Oh, but they came up with the original story, and the screenplay was done by someone else. So I guess maybe these guys aren't like movie and TV people.
So were they some kind of like story think tank, or were they just some people that knew some screenwriters or something?
The Crawfords think tank. I love it.
Although I gotta say, the story of this episode is not super deep. I mean, the story is everybody's imaginations start coming true, and it leads to a bunch of craziness. And then someone's like, what if we just stop using our imaginations? And then they're like, yep, that solved it. The end. Anyway, with that, I guess we'll launch into the recap here. So we open with Odo engaging in his usual hobby of sitting around at Quark's, not buying anything.
Yep, he does do that.
Quark tries to sell Odo a holosuite experience, but Odo turns him down, delivering a speech about the uselessness of imagination. He sees Jake Sisko exiting the holosuite and worries Jake has been doing naughty things, but Quark assures him that he was simply playing baseball. Which, I mean, I don't know who controls what program you use in the holosuite, but
I feel like what we've seen, and I don't know if it's in the past or the future, but it's like when you rent a holosuite, you like Quark gives you like a little rod that whatever program is on that you're using.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I think he's like the librarian of these things. But Jake brought his own program, so I guess
Sure.
Quark doesn't care if what you do if you've got your own program that you're using.
True. I mean, I guess like Nog could steal some programs from behind the bar.
Probably true.
But anyway. Quark then shares his vision of a family-friendly entertainment complex where parents and kids can go to have good, wholesome fun and be price gouged out the ass.
See, I feel like that's a storyline that I also wish that we would see at some point, where he actually goes into this family entertainment business that he talks about, because it's a good idea when you got the Federation and like Bajoran families or whatever setting up on the station. That's exactly the kind of thing that would work.
It would be like Moe's family-friendly feed barn or whatever that episode was. And then Jake could sell his soul to Nog. Just like be a blatant ripoff.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Meanwhile, Bashir declares his undying love for Dax.
Oh gosh, he's so obnoxious. And the show really, this whole time, like we talked about previously, when we see him with that girl and he's regaling her with like the story of his final exam, and he talks about how it like works every time or whatever. And it's just like, that's a joke, right? But the show really wants us to believe he's like a ladies' man, because during this conversation, Dax is like, well, what about this chick that you hooked up with and this other chick that you hooked up with? And he's like, oh, that's whatever.
A poor substitute and a barely adequate substitute. I say he should go for that barely adequate substitute. Sounds like she was nice.
Yeah, right? But I'm just like, I feel like you're asking for a lot of a suspense of disbelief. Like, you've got me believing that, yeah, sure, Rumpelstiltskin shows up. I'm with you. This guy is like all the ladies want him. I'm having trouble.
Yeah. Dax gets called away to Ops, where they tell her about some mysterious energy readings. Dax asks, what's up with that? And they're like, dude, that's your job.
Yeah, that's so true. Kira's like, well, we were hoping you could tell us. And she's like, oh, right, I'm the science officer. Yeah, I'll get on that.
Oh, yeah. It's like I was too busy, like, having my ego stroked by Bashir. Meanwhile, again, O'Brien and Keiko are reading Rumpelstiltskin to Molly at bedtime. And Molly is played by the same actress who played her in Next Gen in one episode. I noticed in IMDb.
Oh yeah, that's good. Very consistent.
So, and plays her many times later in Deep Space Nine. They tuck her in and leave for some grown-up tuck-in time. But Molly comes out of her room and says, Rumpelstiltskin is in there. O'Brien's like, yeah, right. But then he goes in there, and sure enough, Rumpelstiltskin is indeed in there. O'Brien calls security, who tried to arrest Rumpelstiltskin, but he uses magical Rumpelstiltskin powers to evade them.
He does indeed.
O'Brien calls Sisko to come handle the situation personally for some reason.
Yeah, that was a choice. I mean, I might have gone for Odo first, but whatever.
Yeah, it seems like, when you have a magically teleporting dwarf in your room or something, maybe try to counter that with some shapeshifter action or something. I don't know.
But the part that's even funnier to me, though, is when he calls Sisko is like sitting alone in a dark room, like I guess, reading a pad or something.
Yeah, he's like reading a book or.
But it's like it's very dark in this room, and the pad doesn't have like backlighting of any sort. So I'm just like, that's a weird choice, but all right.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like reading in the dark, or not, all the way dark, but I like reading in low light. So maybe he does too. I don't know.
Sure.
Anyway, Cisco can't make it because it turns out a dead baseball player followed Jake home from the holodeck. Meanwhile, again, Dr. Bashir is in bed and wakes up to find Dax in bed with him, trying to seduce him. Before it can go too far, however, they get called to Ops, where Cisco shows them Rumpelstiltskin and the baseball player, whose name is Harmon Bokai, or Bokai?
Buck Bokai.
I thought he called him Bach Bokai.
No, it's Buck with a U. I was reading about him.
Okay.
Because there's a weird thing in the wiki where it's like, Buck Bokai was first mentioned in this episode of The Next Generation, although not by name. And I was like, well, then how was he mentioned? Like, I don't...
Yeah, what? Was he in the last... Where they just mentioned the last World Series or something?
Maybe, but I don't, like, I have to go back and watch The Big Goodbye now, which is not one of the greatest episodes of The Next Generation or anything, but
right.
I have to go and find out what exactly the mention of Buck Bokai is, because, or whatever, because I really want to know now.
Well, that's an interesting callback, if it's true. And apparently, Major League Baseball is no more in the future.
Yep.
So
it fell out of popularity.
Yep. Cisco asks Dax if this could be related to the Thoron emissions, but Dax doesn't know what he's talking about. Suddenly the turbolift arrives and a second Dax steps out, who is not only unsurprised to see another Dax in Ops, but somehow knows what Cisco asked her, even though the turbolift didn't start arriving until after he asked his question.
Yeah, it's like, maybe you should ask me. And I was just... There's lots of interesting stuff there because, yeah, she doesn't really react at all at this point, but also, like, imaginary or fantasy Dax is dumb, which I was like, man, is that what is that what you like, Bashir?
Well,
it's kind of...
I don't know if that's how you read it, or if you read it that Bashir doesn't know anything about the Thoron emissions, so maybe fantasy Dax doesn't know anything about it either.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. Bashir scans all the newcomers and finds out that they're all completely real. Odo calls in from the promenade to report snow and emus.
No, not emus. It's
right.
What was it called? It's I
mean, it was emus, but I'm not going to.
It was clearly an emu, but he calls it a Gunji jackdaw.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was like, that's an emu.
There's a fun note in the wiki that's like, so this was the only appearance of an emu on Star Trek. They proved to be difficult to receive direction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hasn't entire wars been fought against emus? Yeah, I would imagine they're not great actors.
Can't trust them.
Cisco calls for yellow alert and comes to the only logical conclusion. Everybody's imaginations are turning real. Dax runs a scan and finds a weird space distortion nearby. Back at Quark's, Quark is pleased that he now has 2 hot ladies to follow him around everywhere.
Yep.
But becomes less pleased when Odo points out that all his gambling customers are winning their bets.
So, this is a little transformative of what's happening to me, because, so, on the one hand, like, fantasies are spontaneously generating, right? So there's snow, there's emus, there's Quark's pretty, like, alien chicks. But it's kind of a different situation to, like, change the result of a physical wheel that's already in existence and to make that win. So I was like, oh, this is more all-encompassing than I imagined at first.
Yeah, it's like they're not just creating like new people, they're like rewriting reality or something. Which the implications of that are kind of
right.
Dax and Bashir investigate the anomaly and have an awkward conversation about Bashir's weird fantasy of Dax, where she's all like submissive and stuff.
It's actually my favorite scene of Bashir that we've had in the entire show so far, where he has his whole thing where he's like, I'm sorry. And honestly, we haven't gotten that much to know Dax very well at this point yet. Even the one episode that was all about Dax, I don't feel like we got to know her very much. So it's kind of new ground when she's like, hey, look, it's not that big a deal. Everyone has their fantasies and they're supposed to stay private. I understand. And then she gets kind of snippy when other Dax shows up. And
well, she gets snippy before, well, because, she's trying to be, big about it. Because she's like, I was a young man once too. Even though she was a young man several times.
That was my first, like, don't you mean a bunch of times? But
yeah. And then, like, immediately, it's, like, eating at her too much. She's like, but she's awfully submissive.
And then imaginary Dax shows up, and she's like, I'm just
her man.
I'm just not a cold fish like you.
The mood is dampened, however, when Dax finds a record of a similar anomaly that destroyed an entire system. In Ops, O'Brien monitors a probe launched into the anomaly, while Rumpelstiltskin harasses him. The Rump seems fascinated by the idea that O'Brien is scared of him, even though he's only supposed to be imaginary. Cisco walks through the promenade with Bokai, I can never remember which one it is. Buck.
It's Buck Bokai, yeah.
Okay. Cisco says, casually, he hopes to solve this mystery soon and kill the imaginary Bokai.
Yep.
They talk about how Cisco had every stat of Bokai's programmed into a simulation, and how Cisco programmed himself cheering in the small crowd at his World Series win. Bokai says he remembers, and it meant a lot to him. Later, Rump, Bokai, and Fantasy Dax have a secret meeting where they express frustration and confusion over these people's imaginations. Rump is getting tired of whatever they're doing, but Bokai tells him they should keep going because it's not over till it's over, which I believe is a Yogi Berra quote.
But it adds a whole different dimension to what's going on when you find out that, oh, no, there's actually, they're intelligent and they're behind this. Although it makes you wonder, like, so are those two girls that Quark is walking around with not invited to the party? What about the emus? Are they smart? And like
the emus and the girls seem to be the same creatures.
Oh, that's a good point, because they disappear. The emus disappear right before the girls show back up. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. But and Fantasy Dax has a point where she's like, why would he imagine a girl and then not, like, want to do it with me?
Yeah.
And I was like, why would Bashir not want to do it with you? We know this guy.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's not really in keeping with what we know of Bashir's character, but also I think it's just that he's suspicious of the situation. Like, he immediately assumes it's a prank. Because, she had just, like, pretty solidly turned him down.
Yeah, but in that one scene, like, when she first shows up, like, they go back and forth a bit, and then she's like, why are you fighting this? And he's like, why am I fighting this? Yeah. Okay, let's do this. And then that's when he gets a call, and he's like, oh, you're screwing with me now.
Yep. In Cisco's office, the command staff discuss what to do about the anomaly. Apparently, when the Vulcans encountered the last one, they launched a pulse wave torpedo at it, and the resulting explosion destroyed the entire system. O'Brien suggests that they try doing the exact same thing. Kira is like, wait, what? But is quickly put in her place.
Yep.
It's like, wait, the thing that destroyed the entire system, you want to do that again? He's like, yeah, well, don't worry about it.
Like, the Vulcans sucked when they did it. We'll do it right.
Yep, we know what they're doing. We know what we're doing. Those Vulcans, they didn't know anything.
He said that they had, like, the technology that we're using is more advanced than what they had.
Sure, but I mean, it's the same principle, right?
Yep.
Like, I don't know what the... Anyway, while preparations are made, various other imagination incidents occurred. Kira sees an explosion and a man catching on fire. Quark briefly loses his hot ladies, but quickly gets them back. Weirdly, at the same time, Odo's emus disappear. Odo sees Quark in jail and seems rather pleased with himself. So I guess his fantasy is having Quark in jail.
Yeah, like, I guess getting to legitimately arrest him for something. And
even though he knows it's part of his imagination, he's into it.
Yeah, he's like, I'll just enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like the aliens. He's like, hey, why not just enjoy this stuff? He probably goes in there and, like, beats Quark or something. I don't know.
And I like, my first thought is like, wait, did real Quark get transported here, or is this imaginary Quark? And then after he's like, call the Negus, and I'm like, oh, this is probably like a fake imaginary Quark.
Yeah, okay. It's like a fantasy Quark type situation. Bokai tempts Jake into ditching his homework and going out for some baseball, but a fantasy version of Jake's dad talks him out of it. So I don't even know what's going on there, where he has a fantasy of his dad threatening to punish him.
Well, I think it's like, Buck Bokai, he acts like he's tempting him, but in reality, he's examining like the dichotomy in Jake's brain, where he's just like, I want to be doing this, or I need to be doing this, but I'd really like to get away and do this other thing, even though I know I shouldn't. Which
Sure.
they're apparently here examining imagination or something. So I think that like this inner conflict that Jake is having makes perfect sense. That he's trying to like just get more into it and figure out like what is going on in this kid's head.
Yeah, probably. Back in Ops, the writers kill a few minutes with some pointless technobabble. Then the torpedo is launched and the anomaly starts making trouble. The Rump offers to make the anomaly go away in exchange for O'Brien's firstborn. But Cisco suddenly realizes that they can make the anomaly go away if they just stop imagining it. This does the trick, and all the imaginary people disappear, except Fantasy Dax, who seems to die in Bashir's arms.
It's funny, Rumpelstiltskin spends half the episode, like, offering to help, and O'Brien's just like, leave me alone, seriously, go away. And I'm just like, but you've created a being with magical powers, how do you know that he cannot help with, like, the magical, like, assuming that you've actually imagined him into reality, how do you know his magical powers don't apply? But then, when we get to that point, he's like, my price will be your firstborn. I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's why you don't make a deal with him. Got it.
He's still Rumpelstiltskin.
Yep.
He still wants your firstborn for whatever reason. To eat or whatever. I don't know.
Apparently, the story was originally about a leprechaun who wanted to steal children. And Colm Meaney was like, no, this is like an offensive Irish stereotype, and Star Trek should not be like encouraging these sort of things. And so they had to rewrite it and figure out a different way to tell the story that way.
Cisco goes back in his office and meets with Bokai. Bokai says that he and the others are explorers, and they're very interested in imagination, which previously I guess they had no concept of. Cisco says, can you tell us anything about your people? And Bokai is like, no. Anyway, gotta go, bye. And then he disappears. The end.
Well, he says, maybe next year, and then throws Cisco a baseball, which is the baseball that will become sort of a story point later on in the show. But
yeah, I was like, did that baseball, was that Cisco's baseball or was that Bokai's baseball?
No, yeah, according to the wiki, it comes from Bokai, and then Cisco keeps it after this point.
Okay, because I was like, that baseball was bouncing around so much. I was like, who originally had that baseball?
But see, here's another example of, because the guy's like, yeah, maybe next year, and then they're never gonna come back. You could have done all sorts of interesting things. They don't have to come back and make fantasies come true every year. You know, they could come back the next time and you have like a different story where they're doing something else weird to examine a different aspect of, you know, this life in this plane of existence or whatever. Sure. And then, you know, they're gradually figuring out more about them until they show up one time and the Starfleet manages to turn the tables on them or something. There's lots of interesting ways you could have gone with this, but instead it's just like another one of those season 1 things that's like, yeah, screw it. We're never going to reference that again.
I mean, maybe they couldn't find the Crawfords to like help them write a new story.
They vanished.
I mean, this episode seriously just is like, let's have everybody's imaginations come true and have a good laugh about it. And then end the episode. Like, the actual story with the aliens, I feel, is not super important or fleshed out, other than to make this make sense.
Yeah, it's true. But at the same time, I feel like this is a very good, like, classic sort of sci-fi story to tell of, you know, something weird is going on and things that you're imagining are turning real and you have to figure out. And I love, actually, the part where, even though I'm pretty sure it's been done before on Star Trek, where it's like you have the anomaly that you totally believe is behind all of this and is a ticking clock that's going to destroy everything. And then you figure out, oh no, wait, the anomaly wasn't the cause of what's happening. What's happening is the cause of the anomaly. And then you turn it all around. Like, I feel like this is very classic Star Trek sci-fi storytelling. And I like the way it's set up a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the I guess interesting thing is Rumpelstiltskin is played by Michael J. Anderson, who played the man from The Other Place in Twin Peaks. The famous backwards talking, dancing dwarf from the Red Room, who says all kinds of things like, that gum you like is about to come back in style. In a scene that was humorously parodied in The Simpsons one time.
I remember the backwards talking part.
Right. When, like, Chief Wiggum can't figure out the subtle clues, and then, like, Lisa has to just break the whole bit and just start telling him, like, what she's trying to say.
Burn suit! Burn suit! Yeah, I remember.
Another fun little factoid is that there was a horror movie called Rumpelstiltskin, and do you know who played Rumpelstiltskin?
No.
Max Grodenchik.
Oh,
Rom,
that is funny.
Who was not in this episode.
Nope.
Maybe he was out filming Rumpelstiltskin. I don't know. I don't know when that movie came out compared to this one. I think this is an upcoming...
Wow, there's an upcoming Rumpelstiltskin? 1995 film starring Max Grodenchik as Rumpelstiltskin.
Yep.
The cover really reminds me of Leprechaun, actually. I'm pretty sure that's like a direct rip.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be, or not supposed to be, is a ripoff of Leprechaun. I have seen this movie. I don't remember much about it.
Not a successful film. It made $306,000, and its widest release was in 54 theaters. I feel like for 54 theaters, that's actually not bad.
Yeah, they were probably like big city theaters too, so big markets. I don't know. Anyway, this episode, it's hard for me to know what to say about this episode. I'm not super up on it, but like I understand like the fun of it's like, oh, Quark's got hot ladies and there's emus running around.
I think that in my memory, this was, and I may have mentioned this last week. In my memory, this episode was another one of those like fun but dumb episodes of Deep Space Nine. Like that's where I'd categorize it in my head. And it's funny because I remember Rumpelstiltskin. I remember, Slutty Dax or whatever you want to call her.
Right.
I'd kind of completely forgotten about everything else. Like I didn't remember the baseball player or the emus or whatever. But watching it today with an eye for like, we're going to be talking about this episode. Right. I actually, like I said before, I find it to be like a really solid like sci-fi story that they're telling, and I like the construction of it. I like the resolution. I agree that the aliens should be more fleshed out, but at the same time, I feel like the way they set that up at the end is like we want the aliens to be mysterious this time so that we can find out more about them later. Maybe. And we just don't. So
I was a little put off by they're kind of investigating this anomaly, but like everything about the anomaly is a red herring.
Yep.
And at the end, it's just like the aliens are like, we made your imaginations come true just to see what would happen. And I feel like in a more traditional Star Trek way of writing the story, they'd be investigating the anomaly, but stuff would keep not adding up and kind of like maybe hinting at there's something up with these imagination guys or whatever.
Sure.
So that's why I felt like they didn't really put much thought into that part of it. They just wanted to have like a fun, like make everybody's imaginations come true.
Yeah, there could have been more clues to like help them resolve the mystery instead of Sisko just coming all out with it at the same moment. Like, wait a second, I've had like a bolt of inspiration.
He's like, I was watching the movie Hook the other day.
But I like that because it's Star Trek, you are completely ready to believe that yes, there's some sort of random anomaly that has shown up out of nowhere for no conceivable reason, and it's causing this weird stuff to happen. I
mean, that's pretty standard Star Trek, where it's like, while they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with, some kind of anomaly also appears, and then it's like either the two turn out to be related, or like whatever they're dealing with turns out to be the solution to the anomaly, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I like that they take advantage of the fact that you're completely ready to buy that there's an anomaly. It came from technobabble. It's causing this bad stuff to happen. And then when they flip it at the end, be like, no, wait, we caused the okay. And you're like, oh, okay, I see what you did there, Star Trek.
Sometimes I kind of wonder, like, if the writers are ever, okay, how many minutes of technobabble do we need to put in to sell this, whatever's going on? Because I feel like in this episode especially, there's like 2 solid minutes of they launch this probe and they're like, oh, Vuju's particles are increasing, and this rating, this reading is going down, and then the voodoo field is doing this. Before like we finally like they clue us in to what this is actually meaning for the plot. I was like, okay, I get it. A science thing is happening.
Yeah.
Like,
you feel like at some point they should just be like, okay, at this point, if you don't accept that, you know, a science thing is happening, like if we really need to go into the technobabble, then it's too late now. So it should be like, just go with it. Anomaly stuff is happening, and we'll move on with the story.
You know, they just need to be like, okay, rift in space getting worse, getting better. I don't know. This also reminded me of the recent film Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah.
Or Wonder Woman 1984, which a lot of people did not like. I actually kind of liked the premise of that movie because it was like a classic Golden Age style comic book story.
It's true.
People, so-called comic book fans, get upset when you put like actual classic comic book style stories in movies. And it amused me watching them complain about that.
Yeah, but I feel like, I mean, I agree. It does feel like a very comic book style movie, but or story. But at the same time, I feel like comic books, you know, that have 10 pages or something can get away with like not developing a character in a way that makes sense because they have to zoom through it. Whereas when you're sitting for a 2-hour movie, you're like, okay, Cheetah's whole thing makes no sense. Why is she so stupid?
Or just the fact that they like took over that guy's body and apparently like used it for nefarious purposes.
A lot of people were very unhappy about that, which I get it. And people have a point that if it had been, you know, a woman's body instead, then it would look very differently, I feel like. But,
So
no need to get into that.
Yeah. Just pointing out that for some reason this plot reminded me of that movie. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. Just, I went into it kind of like, because I remember watching it, and I thought it was like the Rumpelstiltskin episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just remember thinking that was just really dumb and annoying, having Rumpelstiltskin in an episode of Star Trek.
Yep, that's a bold move, all right.
So going in with low expectations kind of helped, you know, me be looser watching it the second time.
Sure.
I'm still not sure I quite liked it, but it was like, okay, you know, Quark's being funny, and I never enjoy seeing pervy Bashir, but some of these scenes where like Fantasy Dax is like dying in his arms, I was just like, what are we doing here?
I feel like it's weird that Quark is walking around like with women on either arm, being like, hey everyone, look at like the beautiful women that I've got. I'm like, why aren't you like in your quarters with these women? Like,
yeah, well, he said he was going to earlier, but I guess he got tired of that, and now he wants to go back out and show off his ladies or something. I don't know. Or I mean, he originally went back out because the ladies disappear.
Right. I love
Presumably they turned into emus.
I love him running up to Odo and being like, I want to report a disappearance. These 2 women. Like, I'm sure Odo wants to help you with this. There's a quote in the wiki article from Hannah, who plays Molly O'Brien, where she's like, this is one of the episodes that really stands out in my mind because I was absolutely terrified of Rumpelstiltskin. I think I legitimately thought the actor who was playing him was going to steal me. And so I was scared to be alone in the same room with him, and I had to have somebody with me at all times.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. He's a scary looking dude.
Well, she's very young here, so.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, how old is that? She's like, when was Molly O'Brien born? Like,
yeah.
The character.
Molly O'Brien. That's a good question. I was thinking she looked about 3, but let's see.
Like, she was born in that disaster episode, right?
Yep. So she's born in 2368, and this episode is set in, let's see, 2369. So she would have been 1 here. Then she looks way too old.
Yeah, what? Hold on a second. So that was Disaster. She was born.
Yep.
That aired in 1991 on October 21st.
Okay, and this one aired, when did we say?
May 16th, 1993. So that's like
She's
She'd
like,
be a year and a half.
So, wow, I thought she was older. She looks older than that. Well, okay.
I mean...
That's interesting.
I don't know.
For a year and a half, she talks pretty well.
Maybe in the... I don't know. I'm not even going to go into it. Yeah, I was like, she's got to be at least 3, right?
Yeah, my kids were not that verbal at a year and a half. That's... she's a good little actress. Okay.
But, well, I think the actress has got to be older than that, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would assume. She has memories of acting with Rumpelstiltskin. She can't actually be that young.
Yeah. What's Hannah, whatever.
She was born 1988.
Okay, so she's 4 or 5.
4. Yeah, that makes more sense. She looks a little younger than that, probably. So, yeah, okay. That I buy.
I mean, I think later, we meet, Worf's son, Alexander.
Oh, yeah, his age is ridiculous.
Who's 6 years old, but he's a grown man.
I think that they talk about that in the episode, that it's Klingons mature more quickly or something.
Sure. You can't really get away with that with Molly.
With Molly.
But whatever, I'll roll with it.
Oh, so apparently, if you go by Stardate, according to the wiki, if you go by the Stardate that is given, this episode actually happens before Dax.
Why? Oh, I mean, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that's just an error or something, but it's an interesting little note.
It's put in the random Stardate number. Unless they just have some plot reason why this really needs to happen before Dax. It's where are we in the Bashir hitting on Dax story arc? So yeah, we gotta put it before Dax. Anyway, anything else to say about this episode?
No, I think we can get into ratings.
I mean, it's it seems like... Well, I just the premise of the episode is so simple.
It is, yeah.
And on one hand, you'd think there'd be just a lot to say about it, but on the other hand, it's kind of one gag for the whole episode.
Honestly, it's weird that it doesn't get stranger. It's it's mostly these 3, and then, I mean, you got the emus and the snow or whatever, but if lots of people, not even fantasies, if their imagination is coming out, I would expect it to get a lot weirder than it does.
Fantasy Dax has a fantasy about Bashir actually liking her, and then it creates a fantasy Bashir.
That would be great, actually.
It's all the fantasy people start having their own fantasies.
And apparently Cisco and Jake seem to be sharing their fantasy character, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not quite clear what's going on there. I guess they just both really like this baseball player so much. I don't know. And
I feel like if you're a guy like Quark and you realize that if I imagine something, it's going to come true, then you're going to be imagining, trying intentionally to bring about all sorts of stuff. I'm going to imagine a giant pile of money.
Yeah. It's oh man, I can imagine a lot of latinum.
Or it's 2 girls are nice, but I could imagine 7 girls.
Yeah, that's true. They really should have pushed it, gone further, kind of kept escalating until stuff was so absurd. But they only have so much time in the episode. Also,
they had the big explosion thing, which that worked, but it once again brings out a lot of people would be worried as things are getting worse and worse about things going catastrophically wrong. So, weird explosions or other stuff should be popping up more. Somebody might be terrified of a serial killer who all of a sudden appears and starts murdering people, or, just weird stuff.
Yeah, you could go a lot of different directions with this. Yeah. So can't really blame them for not going super deep because, like I said, you only have so many minutes in the episode. But,
yeah.
Anyway, so going into ratings, what do you rate this episode?
See, if you'd asked me before we watched it today, I would have said that it's going to be pretty low. But rewatching it and thinking about it today, I actually like it a lot. I'm a big fan of this one in hindsight. And I discovered a lot about it this time that I'd forgotten. I think it's pretty good. So I'm going to go Commander on this one.
Oh, wow. Full Commander.
Yep. Let's see. I've done that on 2 other ones so far. Let me think. Where's this going to go? I'm trying to decide if this goes before or after Babel. See, Babel's another one of those that's sure. a cool sci-fi, Star Trek kind of story.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess I'm liking these things for the same reason. Whereas past Prologue, that was very a character story. Which,
yeah, exactly.
I liked a lot for that reason. But I'm gonna put this as third. I'll put it below the other two.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go and give it just a lieutenant.
Okay.
I mean, I get what you're saying about like the premise is pretty cool. I felt like they should, like I said, I felt like they should have like, if you're gonna like lean on it as a sci-fi premise, I think you need to like flesh it out a little bit more. But I did enjoy some, like I said, some of that's the kind of stuff you imagine the writers having fun, like sitting around being like, oh, and what is Quark imagining? It's like, oh. I'm surprised they didn't bring in like more characters. Like, what is Morn imagining?
Yeah, we should have seen what more. Maybe Morn was imagining something in the background at some point, and we just missed it.
There's one scene where he's like talking to a guy in the background, so maybe he was just imagining having a guy to talk to. I don't know. And between that, The Passenger, and A Man Alone, no, there's no way I can give it worse than The Passenger, so it's got to go above The Passenger. I don't remember why I gave The Passenger a full lieutenant, even.
You have to go back and re-listen to that episode now.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Okay, so yeah, If Wishes Were Horses. 2 pips, right between Babel and The Passenger. I think that's about right.
Hey, see, mine's also right next to Babel.
Let's see, do we have any tangents to go on?
Oh no! I'm going through like the promenade scenes, trying to find Morn in the background.
There is definitely Morn, because I saw him. He's in the back of a Quark scene or two, and there's another scene where he walks by, kind of in the foreground. Like the day that a Morn doesn't show up in an episode will be a very sad day.
Oh, Morn's in the background at the beginning during that whole scene where Odo and Quark are talking. Got it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just talking to another one of the Ferengi bartenders, probably Broik. Broik is that last episode where Quark is like scolding a guy for like accepting that or not canceling that shipment of sauce, whatever, Yamak sauce.
Yamak sauce.
Like when I was looking at because he's unnamed Ferengi basically in the episode, but when I was looking in the credits or whatever, it specifically calls him out as being Broik. Okay,
is he the same one who unsuccessfully cheated at gambling against the Wadi also?
I think so. Let's see. Let's confirm this in the Broik article. Yes, he is. I like those are back to back in his Memory Alpha article. Is he cheats manipulating the table against the Wadi, and then he's responsible for the shipment of 5,000 rapages of Cardassian Yamak sauce.
Nice. This is my favorite shot of Morn so far.
Oh, yep. What's he holding in his other hand?
It's like a helmet or something.
Yeah. That's what I was like, is that a helmet? I don't know that we've ever seen him wearing a helmet.
I just love that the set has this like little stand over here that sells these sticks.
Yep. And the Jumja stick stand is important to the plot of the show forever.
Uh-huh. Yep, it's secret. That the Jumja stick salesman is the real like secret power, watching all the comings and goings from the Gamma Quadrant.
I like when I Google Jumja stick recipe is one of the first ones that pops up. And
take a big thing of Spam, put a stick in it. You got yourself a Jumja stick.
Jumja sticks are sweet Bajoran confections made from the sap of the Jumja tree.
Oh.
The kiosk is operated by Licia Arlen. So we got a name of somebody. Maybe she or he plays a part in an episode at some point.
Probably, or there's probably a throwaway line where it's like, Licia Arlen, the Jumja stick stand operator, complained of a bad smell or something.
Miles O'Brien likes them for their sweetness, while Kira Nerys dislikes them for the same reason. Rom also dislikes them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It appears that Morn likes them, however.
Yep.
He's into it. Unless that's a candy apple, I can't really tell what he's supposed to be eating.
He's walking away from the Jumja stick stand, so it's gotta be.
But are there like different? Do they sell different things in the Jumja stick stand? Like,
it's a good question.
The different flavors.
They do apparently sell different flavors according to this, and if you look at a picture, I'm pretty sure there's like 5 Jumja sticks that you can see in the stand in this picture, and I'm pretty sure those are the only 5 props ever created. And every time you see somebody eating one, it's one of these 5 shapes. I mean,
that one that looks like a Spam pyramid is just like so distinct looking.
No, apparently they have a lot of vitamin C.
Oh wow!
So there's that.
Oh, and then Jake's wearing I didn't even realize Jake's wearing a blue jumpsuit in this picture.
Oh yeah, totally.
Not his trademark green jumpsuit.
There's an entry in the Star Trek fashion blog called "The Many Outfits of Jake Sisko."
Nice.
This is it's just several pictures, but he seems to have 6 outfits.
Nice. I mean, Quark only seems to have 1 outfit, so
You're not wrong. Yep.
I mean, for most of the characters, you can get away with it because they just wear uniforms. But
Right? Yeah. It really starts to show when you have these civilian characters.
it's like, wow, Quark's wearing that again, huh? I want to know what Quark's closet looks like.
Somebody needs to go to the tailor more often.
Yep. Yeah, come on. Put this tailor to good use. Like,
I guess Nog has several outfits.
yeah, until later.
When he turns into a vampire.
Yeah, exactly. In the vampire season, when he just wears all black all the time.
All black all the time, yep.
It's like, he gets way too into being a vampire. He's like, I am Vampire Nog. And they're like, yeah, I know, we're all vampires too.
Yeah, it's like, duh. What else is new? I wonder what the actress who plays Molly O'Brien has been doing, if anything.
I was kind of curious about that. I'm always curious when I see like a kid actor on Star Trek or something. I was like, did they become famous?
So let's see. She was in an episode of Family Matters as Steve Urkel number 3. All right.
Yeah, makes sense. She's a...
So between Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which ended in 1999, and her next role, there's a 10-year gap. And in 2009, she plays Coke Girl in My Suicide. And then...
that sounds nice.
8 years later, in 2017, she plays Ensign O'Reilly in Star Trek Renegades.
Star Trek Renegades?
I've never heard of this, and I'm going to find out more about it. And then Monster School Animation as head of security, Chief Hatai, which is her actual last name. So, okay. Star Trek Renegades, set after the USS Voyager's return to Earth, a ragtag crew of renegades and outcasts must covertly work with Admiral Chekhov and Tuvok to stop forces threatening the Federation.
Huh.
Starring Walter Koenig, so they got Chekhov back to...
Sure.
Wow, okay.
I mean, he became a real actor. And not just a real actor, but a real person with his own friends and keys.
And keys, yep.
Terry Farrell's in this?
What is this, and how do I not know anything about it?
There's Star Trek Renegades, and then there's just Renegades.
Oh, this is a non-profit movie made through Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns, including several actors from the commercial Star Trek movie and series. But how can you make it a Star Trek... Like, how can you call it Star Trek if you're not Paramount or whatever, and not get sued?
That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure out how there's 2 separate entries in IMDb for it.
Well, apparently there's a movie and a show?
It says Star Trek Renegades TV series, Renegades TV series.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's the Requiem. Star Trek Renegades has one episode, the Requiem. And Star Trek Renegades has the Requiem Part 1 and Requiem Part 2.
Okay.
So I do not understand 2 seasons.
Okay. Let's see, the complete
I think there's Pilot in season 1,
yeah,
and there's the Requiem in season 2.
Funded
so I think somebody just doesn't know how to set up IMDb.
That's probably what it is, yeah. Funded through crowdsourcing, the film's producer said they would submit it to CBS as a spec TV pilot. The complete film was uploaded to YouTube in August 2015. Plans were announced for a web-based series, but in 2016, the overt Star Trek elements and characters were removed to avoid legal complications as a result of the Star Trek Axanar lawsuit.
I mean, how did you not see that coming?
Well, exactly. Okay, now I'm looking at Star Trek Axanar, which was funded through Kickstarter, raised $101,000, set in the Star Trek universe. Ooh, starring Tony Todd. And J.G. Hertzler.
Huh. A Tim Russ film? So Tim Russ directed it?
Yes. CBS and Paramount Pictures files lawsuit, which you would do, against Axanar for infringing their rights by making use of the Klingon language and innumerable copyrighted elements of Star Trek. I like how the Klingon language is the first one. Like, they used Klingon, so...
Yeah. That's the smoking gun right there. I guess it's like, no, this is a different... Tuvok, and okay, but then how come they're speaking Klingon?
So, okay, back to Renegades. So, Admiral Pavel Chekhov is head of Starfleet Intelligence, and he wants to work with Commander Tuvok current head of the newly reorganized Section 31.
I see.
I love this. Tuvok is the head of Section 31. I want to go watch this now. This sounds great.
That is a pretty cool. I would watch some Section 31 stuff with Tuvok as the boss. That would be cool. He would be cool, like Section 31.
Yeah,
like a Vulcan boss.
Okay, so the casting of Renegades includes several Star Trek alumni in their former roles. Harry Kim is back. Okay, he was going to come back, but then he had a conflict.
Huh.
Who else is here? I mean, we know that they've got Molly O'Brien, but not as Molly O'Brien. We got Tim Russ as Tuvok, Walter Koenig as Pavel Chekhov. Adrienne Wilkinson was cast as Commander Lexa Singh, a direct descendant of Khan Noonien Singh.
Oh.
Robert Picardo was cast as Dr. Louis Zimmerman, which, yes, that's who he played him already, so I don't know how you can...
Uh-huh.
That's not a surprise cast. Oh, man. This guy, Manu, I don't know how to pronounce his name, reprises his role from Voyager as former Borg Icheb, the most popular Voyager character.
Wasn't he one of the Borg kids or
yeah,
something?
he was the oldest of the Borg kids. I hated those Borg kids. Oh my gosh, Grant Imahara was cast as Lieutenant Masaru, an aide to Pavel Chekhov.
Huh.
Good for him.
Wow. Okay, and we got in this episode.
Sorry, yeah. There was you're asking for a tangent. There it went.
Yeah, I got what's coming to me. That's true. We got tangents. We generated some good content for the listeners to get bored of and stop early.
Yep.
What do I say? I declare this episode of Undeclared Bajor declared. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description where I occasionally put links to interesting things, like some of that stuff we were just talking about. I'm Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
Goodbye.
May you all outsmart the hunters for one more day, and if not, die with honor. But either way, please remember to drop by anytime you're feeling homesick.
Drop dead anytime you're feeling homesick.
Yeah, we don't want you here. Go to your own home.